Hey guys, Baltic Dragon here. In this short video I'd like to briefly outline the main features of the manual for Raspberry F-15E Strike Eagle I'm currently working on. Now, do remember that everything you're about to see is work in progress and thus subject to change. Also, the full list of features are available in the early access version of the module will be decided on and published by Raspberry. And one final disclaimer, because of the fact that not everything will obviously be implemented at early access stage, in the first version of the manual I'm going to focus on those things that are going to be in and working from the outset. So let's begin. So let's start with the structure of the manual, and there's no surprises here. So we'll start off with the, of course, normal introduction, and then walkthrough of the front and rear cockpit, and description of each knob, switch and gauge, of course, where applicable, with reference to more in-depth sections of the manual where given systems will be described in greater detail. And here I'd like to show you one of the more innovative features of this manual. So how many times have you been looking at the overview of a cockpit and then just like the one in here and was forced to scroll back and forth between certain systems and then going back to the general picture? Well, here you'll not have to do it anymore. It's enough to click on whatever interests you, the instrument, mind you, not the description, but if you want to, let's say, see the remote intercommunications panel, click here and there it is. And then if you want to go back to the overview, it's enough to just click back on this picture here and you'll be back at the general description. So if you want to see a throttle, go, bam, you have the throttle quadrant here. Then if you want to go back, you're back at the start. As simple as that. Now let's move to the hands-off throttle and stick, which is the HOTAS. And this F-15 Strike Eagle controls are quite advanced and very complicated from the outset. So apart from the stick and throttle in the front seat, there's also one set in the back, in the rear cockpit, and also two hand controls for the WISO on top of that. So trying to describe all the functions in one place would be extremely confusing and counterproductive. Therefore, what I have done was to have a very general description of each switch and button, as you can see here. So again, you see the whole, that's the front stick. You can see there's clickable buttons here. So if you want to see one of them, just click on it and then you got the description. If you want to go back, you click again, and that's how it works, exactly how it's with other parts of the manual. So you'll also note that I have added visual cues on how each of the buttons work in order to make it easier to map them. So you can see this is four-way button that can also be pressed. This is only pressed. This one goes up and down, or depending on how you look at it, forward and back, and can be pressed. And the same is true for the throttles, but here, like this one, means it's a TDC, so you can actually slew it using a pad, so to speak. Here this symbol says it's a stop, so this is a two-way switch with off in the middle. This means that it's a knob, etc., etc. So it should be easier from the outset to determine what each button does and how. Also, at a later stage, I will add proposal of mapping the HOTAS to the most popular sticks and throttles. I'll add it to the manual, but not just yet, because not everything is working. And so again, if you, let's say, go to microphone switch, it just tells you in general what it's doing, but later on in particular chapters, while describing specific systems, I'll be adding relevant HOTAS schematics once again in a more detailed way and description. So the good example would be if we go to the radios part. You have radio HOTAS controls where you have marked exactly which button works for it and what it does in more detailed manner. Or the same will be true if we go a bit lower and you jump into the HUD, for instance. So for heads-up control panel, heads-up HOTAS controls, and again you have a stick. You have which control, the controls marked a different color for those who are doing something specific. And also here you'll probably have, it's not in yet, but you'll have links to other chapters when it's described in even more detail. But look here at TDC, you have much more details than you had in the first chapter for that. So that's how the HOTAS will be described, and it should be easy for you to get a hang of it. Now, another important part are the basic procedures such as startup, takeoff, landing, etc. And for startup, it's structured in a way that will allow you to quickly find the general. Let me go there. So startup, it should allow you to quickly find the general area of the panel you need to work on the given step. So it's marked here. So that's the overview. This is the overview of the front cockpit. This is the place where you can find the engine control panel switches. And then on the right, there's the panel with more details. And in the middle, of course, description, what should be done in which order for things to work. Now, the black points indicate steps you should not miss during the startup in this case, while the gray ones are those that can be skipped to save some time if you don't just want to follow the procedures to the letter. And that goes step after step. I believe it's 30 something, yeah, 35 steps for the front cockpit, which is not very complicated actually. And the takeoff and landing, it's a bit different story. So rear cockpit is very easy to start, as you can see. But here, if you have taxi and takeoff, the important thing is that the tasks are often shared between the front and rear seat. So this will be indicated if you have the whole list of things to do before takeoff. You can see that some of them are marked with P for pilot, B for both, or W for whistle. So you can easily see who does what at each stage of takeoff. Then landing, before you land, this is the whole pattern, what should be done when, and who is responsible for which part. And of course there are special checklists as well included for each part. So you just click it, go to appendix, and this is the landing checklist that I hope we can implement into this sim in a way that you could actually click on those boxes to mark whatever you've already achieved, done, etc. That's it at a glance, although I'm sure there'll be more things added as I progress with the document. For instance, I want to record specific short training videos for different parts of the manual. So if you have a look here into the introduction, you will see that there'll be a special icon for that, and you can just click on it, and then it will link you directly to the YouTube video containing some instructions, and that will all be one big ecosystem comprising of the manual, training missions, and I'll do another video on training, but the plan is to have them really short and sweet so you can focus on one thing at a time. So there'll be many of them, but there'll be a few minutes long, probably maximum 10-15 minutes. So it's easier for you to go back to the parts that interest you and really learn them well, instead of going through a very long mission and having to focus on many tasks. So that's it. Hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you'll enjoy the F-15E Strike Eagle from Razbam, and I hope you'll like the manual that will come with it. And if you enjoy this video, please subscribe to my channel, click on like, and see you next time, guys. Thank you.